Ashley flinched when her stepdad walked into the therapy room. "Doctor." Eliza Hart saw it clearly. Ashley's shoulders tensed, her eyes dropped to the floor, and she held her breath for just a second too long. Most people wouldn't have noticed. But Eliza had been a child therapist for over 15 years. She noticed everything. "Hello," Eliza said with a warm smile. "You must be Ashley." Ashley didn't answer. She clutched her backpack tightly and sat down on the couch without looking at anyone. Her mom, Lacey, gave a nervous laugh. "Sorry, she's been like this for a while. We thought she was just going through a phase. But she's barely talking now, hardly sleeping. She won't even go into her own room at night." "She cries when the lights go out," added Greg, the stepdad. He smiled too much and it didn't reach his eyes. "We figured it was time to talk to a professional." Eliza nodded slowly, pretending to jot something down in her notebook. But she wasn't writing. She was watching Ashley. Ashley's hands were trembling. Once the parents left the room, Eliza turned to Ashley. "It's okay. You don't have to talk if you don't want to," she said softly. "Sometimes it helps just to draw. Is that something you like to do?" Ashley hesitated, then gave the slightest nod. Eliza handed her a small basket filled with crayons and blank paper. Ashley picked up a black crayon and started drawing. For the next 30 minutes, Ashley didn't speak a single word, but she drew 3 things. First, she drew a bed with someone hiding underneath it. Next, she drew a man standing in a doorway. The man had no face. Then she drew a strange symbol. It looked like a triangle with 2 half-moons inside it. Jagged lines surrounded it like it was glowing or shaking. Eliza leaned forward just a bit. "This is interesting," she said gently. "Can you tell me what this means?" Ashley didn't look up. She put the crayon down and stared at the floor. Eliza didn't push. She never did during first sessions. After the session, Eliza walked Ashley to the waiting area. Greg was sitting in a chair, scrolling through his phone. He stood up when he saw them and put his hand on Ashley's shoulder. She stiffened again just for a moment. Eliza kept her expression calm. "We'll meet again next week," she told Ashley. "You did great today." Greg smiled, but Ashley said nothing. She walked out with her parents, quiet as a shadow. Back in her office, Eliza sat down with the drawing. She stared at the symbol. It looked familiar, too familiar. She opened her old case files. One case from years ago stood out. A boy who refused to sleep in his room after being adopted. He said someone came through the wall at night. He drew a similar symbol again and again, on paper, on desks, on his skin. That boy had been removed from his home after bruises were found. The symbol never got explained. Eliza turned to her laptop and typed a search. Triangle with crescents inside. Child drawing. Symbol. Nothing useful came up at first. Just fantasy symbols, video game art, and made-up runes. But one link stood out. An old blog post from 2009. "My daughter started drawing this after we moved into a rental on Warren Street. She says it keeps her safe from the man with no face." Eliza's stomach dropped. Ashley lived on Warren Street. She picked up her voice recorder and spoke softly into it. "Client, Ashley Johnson, age 13. Present signs of emotional trauma, afraid of sleeping in her room, flinched at stepfather's touch. Drew 3 images, bed with hiding figure, faceless man, and unknown symbol. Same symbol appeared in a past case. Further sessions needed. Possible abuse. Possible something else." She paused. "She's not just scared, she's hiding from something. Something she thinks is still in her room." Eliza turned off the recorder and looked again at the strange symbol on the paper. It made her skin crawl. Eliza sat at her desk the next morning, staring at the drawing Ashley had left behind. The triangle with the 2 crescents bothered her more than she wanted to admit. It wasn't just a doodle. Ashley had pressed hard into the paper, almost tearing it. That took effort. That came from something real. She opened Ashley's file again. Nothing unusual jumped out. Good grades until last year. No major illness. Biological father died when Ashley was 6. Mother remarried 2 years ago. A note from the school counselor stood out. Student avoids eye contact with male staff. Reported stomach pains and headaches. No signs of bullying. Eliza highlighted the sentence. That afternoon, Ashley returned for her second session. She was still quiet, still clutching her backpack, but this time she sat down without being told. "Hi, Ashley," Eliza said. "I'm glad you came back." Ashley gave the smallest nod. "Would you like to draw again?" Ashley nodded again. Eliza passed her the same basket of crayons and paper. Ashley picked up the black crayon again. This time Ashley only drew one thing, the same symbol but bigger and darker. She pressed hard with the crayon, coloring over the same lines again and again. Eliza said nothing at first, she just watched. After a while she spoke gently. "Do you think this protects you?" Ashley looked up at her for the first time and nodded, then quietly she whispered, "He doesn't like it." Eliza leaned forward. "Who doesn't like it?" Ashley looked down again and said nothing more. After the session, Eliza walked Ashley to the waiting area. Greg was sitting in the same spot. Again, he smiled too quickly. "How'd it go?" he asked. "She did well," Eliza said. "We're making small steps." He put his hand on Ashley's shoulder again. Ashley didn't move, but her eyes darted toward Eliza. Eliza waited until they left, then sat at her desk again. She pulled out her phone and looked up the address from Ashley's intake form. 212 Warren Street. She searched the address online. Nothing strange at first. A three-bedroom house built in the 1960s, listed for rent multiple times over the last 10 years. Then she found something. A forum thread from 5 years ago. "Does anyone know the history of 212 Warren Street? Weird things happening in the attic. My son won't sleep there. He says there's scratching under the floor at night." Another reply added, "My cousin lived there back in 2010. Her daughter stopped talking for months. Drew the same weird triangle symbol all over her walls." Lisa leaned back in her chair. This wasn't just Ashley. Other children had drawn the same thing. She picked up her recorder again. Second session with Ashley Johnson. Drew the same symbol again, much larger. Said he doesn't like it. No name given. Child shows high levels of fear and silence when referring to stepfather. Research shows house at 212 Warren has previous reports of similar behavior from past child residents. She paused. Not just trauma. This might be something linked to the house itself. She stopped the recorder and looked again at the drawing. Her gut told her something was wrong. Very wrong. The next day she called Ashley's school counselor. "Has Ashley said anything to you?" Eliza asked. "Not directly," the woman said, "but she always looks over her shoulder, especially during pickup time. I thought she was scared of someone watching her." "Anyone in particular?" "She never says names, but once she said, 'He's in the house, even when I'm alone.'" That sentence stayed with Eliza long after she hung up. Later that night, Eliza sat at home, staring at a printed copy of Ashley's drawing. She opened her laptop and typed one sentence into her notes. "What is happening inside that house?" It was Thursday morning when Eliza got the call from Ashley's mom. "She didn't sleep again last night," Lacey said, her voice tired. "She screamed when we tried to turn off the light. Then she locked herself in the bathroom and wouldn't come out for an hour." Eliza stayed calm. "Was Greg home?" There was a pause on the line. "He was working late. Didn't get back until after midnight," Lacey said. "Why?" Eliza hesitated. Ashley seemed scared. "It might be connected to something she's seeing or something she remembers. I'd like to visit your house if that's okay. Sometimes the space can tell me more than words." Lacey sounded surprised. "You want to come to the house?" "If Ashley's okay with it," Eliza said gently. Another pause. "I'll ask her," Lacey said. "She's been quiet all morning." That afternoon, Eliza drove to 212 Warren Street. It looked like any other house. Gray siding, small porch, old wind chime by the door. But as soon as she stepped onto the porch, she felt something cold settle in her chest. A feeling she couldn't explain. Lacey opened the door. "She's upstairs," she said. Hasn't left her room since breakfast. Eliza nodded and stepped inside. The air felt heavy. Is Greg home? She asked. No, Lacey said. He's at work. Eliza walked slowly up the stairs. The house creaked under her feet. At the top, she found Ashley's door half open. The girl was sitting on her bed, hugging a pillow. Ashley, Eliza said softly. Hi, I just wanted to check in. Is it okay if I sit with you for a little? Ashley nodded slightly. Eliza sat in the desk chair near the bed. Her eyes scanned the room. Posters on the wall, a stuffed bear on the shelf. Nothing strange at first. Then she noticed the rug. It had been pulled halfway out from under the bed. Eliza looked at Ashley. Can I look under the bed? Ashley didn't answer, but her grip on the pillow tightened. Eliza slowly got down on her knees and lifted the edge of the rug. There, carved deep into the wooden floor under the bed, was the same symbol from Ashley's drawings. The triangle, the two crescents, and something new scratches around it like claws or fingernails had dug into the wood. Eliza's heart pounded. How long has this been here? She asked. Ashley whispered, I don't know, I found it one night after I had a bad dream. Eliza looked at her. Do you think someone else made it? Ashley didn't answer. She just looked toward the corner of the room. Back downstairs, Eliza sat with Lacey at the kitchen table. There's a symbol carved under her bed, Eliza said carefully. It matches the one she's been drawing in our sessions. Lacey frowned. Ashley said she found it months ago, but I thought it was just her imagination. I didn't actually look. You never checked? Eliza asked, surprised. She's always been private. I didn't want to push her. Eliza kept her voice calm. Has Greg ever been alone in her room? Lacey looked uncomfortable. He helps tuck her in sometimes, but lately she hasn't wanted him near her. Has she ever said why? She just says he gives her a bad feeling, but kids say stuff like that, right? Eliza didn't answer right away. Finally she said, sometimes, but not always. That night, Eliza sat at her kitchen table, staring at the notes she'd written. Ashley is afraid of something inside the house. She says he doesn't like the symbol. She found it under her bed, not drew it herself. Scratches near the symbol look like claw marks. She added one more line. She's not just scared of her stepdad. She's scared of something else. At 2:12 a.m., Eliza woke up from a nightmare. She dreamed of the triangle. In the dream, it was glowing red. A faceless man stood behind it, whispering something she couldn't understand. She couldn't move, couldn't scream. When she sat up in bed, her heart was racing. She went to the bathroom, splashed cold water on her face, and looked at herself in the mirror. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. He knows you saw it. Eliza froze. The screen went dark. Eliza sat frozen in the dark bathroom, staring at her phone. The message was still there. He knows you saw it. Her mind raced. Who sent it? Was it a prank? Had someone followed her? She checked the number. It was unknown. No contact. No history. She tried calling it. It rang once, then stopped. She locked her phone and sat on the edge of the bathtub. Her heart wouldn't slow down. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe it was spam. But deep down, she didn't believe that. The next day, Ashley didn't come to her appointment. Eliza called the house. No answer. She called again an hour later. Still nothing. She left a message for Lacey. Just checking in on Ashley. Let me know if you'd like to reschedule. Then she waited. The day passed slowly. No calls, no texts, no replies. By evening she was pacing her office. Something didn't feel right. At 6:47 p.m. her phone finally rang. It was Lacey. Eliza answered right away. Hi, is everything okay? Lacey's voice was shaky. Ashley locked herself in the closet this morning. She wouldn't come out for hours. She said she saw something in the mirror. What did she say exactly? She said he's watching again. She won't eat. She won't talk. Greg tried to take her phone away, and she started screaming. Did she say who he is? No, Lacey whispered, but I think it's Greg. Eliza's throat tightened. Why do you think that? She never says his name, but when he walks in the room she freezes. Her eyes change, like she's gone. There was a long pause. I used to think she was just being dramatic, Lacey said softly. Now I think something happened. Eliza met Lacey and Ashley at the office the next morning. Greg didn't come. Ashley looked worse, pale, tired. Her eyes were dark underneath like she hadn't slept in days. They sat down in Eliza's therapy room. Eliza handed Ashley a warm cup of tea and spoke softly. "You don't have to talk if you're not ready," she said, "but I'm listening and I believe you." Ashley said nothing at first. Then she whispered, "He watches from the mirror." Eliza leaned forward. "Who does?" Ashley stared at the floor. "He has no face." Eliza felt a chill. "Does he come at night?" she asked. Ashley nodded. "Do you see him in your room?" Another nod. "Was he there the night I visited?" "Yes," Ashley whispered. "He was under the bed." Eliza's stomach dropped. "Did he hurt you?" "No, he doesn't touch me. He just watches, but I know he wants to." After the session, Eliza sat with Lacey in the hallway. "I need you to take her somewhere safe," she said. "Just for a few nights, a friend's house, a hotel, anywhere Greg can't go." Lacey looked down. "I don't know what to believe anymore." "Believe your daughter," Eliza said firmly. Lacey's hands were shaking. "He's been good to us. He helped us through so much." "But something is happening," Eliza said. "And she's scared of him. That matters more than anything else right now." Lacey nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll take her to my sister's." That night, Eliza did more research. She typed the same phrase into every search bar. "Faceless man mirror symbol." She found more stories than she expected. One from a woman in Ohio who said her daughter stopped sleeping after drawing triangles on the wall. Another from a man in Idaho who claimed his niece spoke to someone behind the glass every night until she stopped talking altogether. In each story, the same details appeared. Children drew the same triangle symbol. They complained of a man with no face. Mirrors made them panic. Adults never saw anything. But in one thread, someone had posted a warning. "If you find the symbol, don't erase it. It protects them." Eliza stared at that line for a long time. She remembered the scratches under Ashley's bed. The way they circled the symbol, like something had tried to destroy it, like something wanted it gone. That night, Eliza locked her mirrors. She covered the one in the bathroom with a towel and turned her closet mirror to face the wall. She didn't sleep much. At 3:12 a.m. she heard scratching. It came from under her bed. She froze. Then slowly leaned over the side and looked down. Nothing. She turned on the light. The sound stopped. She looked again. The floor was clean. No marks. No dust. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had been there. Watching. Waiting. Checking in. "Let me know if everything's okay with Ashley. I noticed she missed her session today." She hung up but didn't feel good about it. Something was off. Eliza stared at her phone for the next hour, waiting for a reply that didn't come. That evening she drove past 212 Warren Street. The porch light was off. The curtains were drawn. No sign of movement. She didn't stop. She just drove by slow, like a shadow. The next morning she still hadn't heard from Lacey, so she filed a concern report through the clinic asking Child Protective Services to check in on Ashley. It wasn't formal yet, but she wanted it on record. That afternoon she finally got a text from Lacey. "Sorry, Ashley's been sick, fever and nightmares. We've been keeping her in bed. Can we reschedule for next week?" Eliza replied, "Of course. Just let me know if she needs anything." But that didn't sit right either. Sick, fever. The timing was too neat. Right after Eliza visited. Right after the symbol was exposed. That night, Eliza couldn't sleep. She sat on the couch with Ashley's first drawing in her lap and a laptop on her knees. She dug deeper into anything she could find about the symbol: triangle, crescents, claw marks. Finally, she found something. A scanned page from a decades-old book called Children of the Hollow. A rare, self-published thing from the 1990s. She zoomed in. There it was. The same symbol. Below it in faded text, "The binding ward, used by the children to keep the faceless man from entering their dreams, must be drawn or carved near the sleeping place. Once disturbed, the protection breaks." Eliza sat up straighter. The faceless man. Ashley had drawn him. She looked at the page again. A second symbol was mentioned, one used to invite the presence instead of block it. A reverse triangle with the crescents turned outward. The drawing Ashley made wasn't reversed. She had drawn the protection symbol, but someone else had carved it under her bed. Someone who knew what it meant. And the scratches around it, maybe they weren't from fingernails. Maybe they were from trying to get in. Eliza's hand shook as she reached for her recorder. Case note: Ashley Johnson. Symbol confirmed to be linked to obscure warding practices from local folklore, possibly cult-related. Same symbol found in rare literature tied to child protection rituals. Carving under Ashley's bed appears to be placed there by someone else. Possible attempt to keep something away. If disturbed, protective effect may be broken. She paused, staring at the recorder, then added, "She said he doesn't like it. If she meant Greg, it would make sense. But what if she meant someone or something else?" That night she had the dream again. This time the faceless man stood closer. He pointed at her, whispered something she couldn't hear, and behind him she saw Ashley, standing in a dark hallway, eyes wide with fear. When Eliza woke up, there were 3 missed calls from an unknown number. No voicemails, just silence. That morning she got a message from CPS. They wanted her to join them on a follow-up home visit. Eliza said yes immediately. Something was wrong inside that house, and she wasn't going to stop until she found out what. Ashley sat curled up in the therapy room chair, knees tucked to her chest, eyes heavy with sleep. It had taken a full week to get her back into a session. Eliza had made multiple calls, left messages, even contacted the school to check attendance. Lacey finally called her back and agreed to bring Ashley in. "She's barely sleeping," Lacey had said. "She wakes up screaming. She's saying strange things now, like someone is whispering to her from under the floor." Eliza had kept her voice calm. "Let me try something different this session." Now, Eliza sat across from Ashley, a soft gray blanket folded beside her chair. She didn't pull out any crayons this time. Instead, she spoke gently. "Have you ever done a dream exercise before?" Ashley shook her head without looking up. "It's simple," Eliza said. "You close your eyes and I'll guide you through a story. You're safe the whole time. It's like pretending, but sometimes it helps us find things inside our heads, things we're not ready to say out loud." Ashley hesitated. Then, slowly, she gave a small nod. Eliza dimmed the lights and spoke softly. "Close your eyes, Ashley. I want you to imagine your room, just like it is now, the bed, the rug, the window. Picture it in your mind." Ashley's breathing slowed. "You're lying in bed," Eliza continued. "It's nighttime, everything is quiet, but then something wakes you up, a sound, a feeling." Ashley's hands twitched in her lap. "What do you hear?" A pause, then Ashley whispered, scratching. Eliza's voice stayed steady. "Where's it coming from?" "Under the bed," Ashley said. Eliza took a breath. "You look down. Do you see anything?" Ashley's eyelids twitched. "He's there." "Who is?" "The man with no face." Eliza's pulse quickened, but she kept her voice calm. "Can you describe him?" Ashley's breathing picked up. "He doesn't move, just watches. He stands in the doorway sometimes, or under the bed. His face is smooth, like melted wax." "Does he say anything?" Ashley shook her head. "He hums, and sometimes he laughs, but not loud, like he's inside my head." Eliza swallowed. "Has anyone else seen him?" Ashley was quiet then. "I think Greg knows he's there, but he doesn't care." Eliza felt a chill run through her spine. "What makes you think that?" Ashley's voice dropped lower. "He talks to him. I heard him in the hallway, whispering like a prayer." Eliza sat still, trying not to let the shock show on her face. "Does your mom hear it too?" "She doesn't want to," Ashley whispered. "She acts like nothing's wrong." Ashley's eyes opened suddenly, wide, alert. "He was at the foot of my bed last night," she said. Eliza leaned forward. "Did he do anything?" Ashley nodded slowly. "He was holding something, a knife, I think, but it wasn't for me." "For who then?" Ashley's voice cracked. "Greg." Eliza ended the exercise there. "You did really well," she said softly. "You're safe here." Ashley didn't speak again for the rest of the session. That evening, Eliza sat at her desk playing back the session's recording. He talks to him, like a prayer. She paused the audio. She remembered Greg's fake smile, the way Ashley flinched when he entered the room, the carved symbol under the bed, the scratches in the wood. This wasn't just fear. This was something deeper. She searched online again. This time, she looked up, faceless figure in dreams plus symbol protection triangle. A few links came up. Folk tales, paranormal message boards. Then one article stood out. Wards of binding, old protection symbols used in household rituals. Eliza clicked it open. In the middle of the article was a black and white drawing. Her breath caught. It was almost the same as Ashley's symbol, triangle, two crescent shapes, jagged edges. The caption read, "Used to bind spirits or prevent unwanted visitors from passing into a space. Often carved into wood or drawn near beds in homes associated with spiritual trauma." She scrolled further. The article mentioned a cult group from the 1990s in the same region. Small, secretive, never officially named. Some members arrested for endangering minors. One of their meeting places was rumored to be inside a house on Warren Street, 212 Warren. Eliza leaned back, stunned. Could Greg have lived there before? She searched public property records, owner history, previous tenants. And then one line stood out: Gregory T. Harlan, resident, 1998-2003. Eliza's chest tightened. He had lived in the same house as a teenager. She opened her notebook and wrote, "Ashley draws a binding symbol. Reports of faceless man. Symbol meant to protect from spirits. Greg lived in the house before. Ashley thinks Greg knows about the man." The pieces were starting to connect. Eliza picked up her voice recorder. "Fifth session with Ashley Johnson. Dream exercise. Child describes recurring visions of a faceless man who watches from under the bed and the doorway. Claims stepfather Greg Harlan speaks to him. Symbol drawn matches binding symbol tied to spiritual protection. Research confirms Greg previously lived in the same home over 20 years ago." She clicked off the recorder. Then she whispered to herself, "What happened in that house when Greg was a child?" Later that night her phone buzzed. A text from Lacey. "Ashley won't stop talking about a basement, but we don't have a basement, just the crawl space." Eliza replied quickly, "Can you check it, make sure it's secure?" No answer. She stared at her phone for a long time. Then finally typed a single line into her notebook, "I need to see that crawl space." Lacey's voice was shaky on the phone. "It's nothing," she insisted. "Just an old crawl space. Dirt floor, cobwebs, broken tools. No sign of anyone going in or out." But Eliza heard the tremor under her words. "Did you check thoroughly?" she asked. "I did. I even took a flashlight. Greg was annoyed I brought it up, said it was ridiculous, but I looked." Eliza let the silence settle between them. Then she asked, "Has Ashley said anything else?" There was a pause. "She said she dreamed about him again," Lacey whispered. "This time he came out from under the bed and stood over me." Not her, me. Eliza's stomach sank. She said he was whispering, "She'll see now," over and over. Eliza was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Can I come by the house?" Lacey hesitated. "Now, tomorrow," Eliza said. "After school hours, I just want to look at Ashley's room again." Another pause. Then, "Okay, but Greg will be home." "I understand," Eliza said, her voice even. "I won't overstep." The next afternoon, Eliza pulled up to the house at 3:10 p.m. The air felt heavy, like before a storm. Lacey answered the door with a tight smile. "Greg's in the garage," she said. "I told him you were here for follow-up on Ashley's behavior." "Where is she now?" "In her room. She doesn't like being home alone anymore." Eliza stepped inside. Everything looked the same, but it felt different, darker somehow, like the house had grown heavy with secrets. "She's been drawing again," Lacey said, motioning toward the kitchen counter. Eliza glanced down. Another triangle, rougher this time, thicker lines, scratched deep into the paper with what looked like a broken pencil. Beside it were shaky words, "He watches when the lights go out." Eliza folded the paper and tucked it into her bag. "Can I see her room again?" Lacey nodded. They walked down the hall in silence. Ashley's room was clean, neat, nothing out of place. The little bed, the shelves of books, the same narrow wooden floorboards. Eliza knelt down and looked under the bed again. The symbol was still there, but now just beside it another mark, faint, a new one. It looked like a circle with a slash through it, almost like an eye crossed out. "What's that?" she asked. "I don't know," Lacey said. "I didn't notice it before." Eliza reached for her flashlight and shined it closer. The mark wasn't drawn, it was burned. "Eliza," Lacey said suddenly, her voice tight. "Do you hear that?" They paused. A faint sound echoed from the wall like humming, low, deep, almost human. Eliza stood quickly. "Where's the crawlspace door?" "In the hallway closet." Eliza moved fast, her heartbeat thudding in her ears. She opened the closet and pulled aside coats and boxes. A wooden hatch in the floor stared back at her. It had a simple latch and a padlock. "Greg keeps it locked," Lacey said, stepping behind her. "Says it's for safety." "Does Ashley have a key?" "No." Eliza stared at the padlock. "Do you?" Lacey looked down, then whispered, "Yes." She returned a moment later with a small key. Eliza hesitated, then unlocked the latch. The padlock clicked open. Eliza slowly lifted the hatch. Darkness breathed up at her. She flicked on her flashlight and peered inside. The space was cramped. Dirt walls, old pipes, tangled cobwebs. Then she saw it. At the far end of the crawlspace, etched into the wood beam, the same triangle symbol. Eliza crawled down slowly, her knees pressing into the dirt. There were more carvings here. Symbols, some old, some fresh, and something else, scraps of paper. She picked one up. It was a page torn from a child's notebook. In shaky handwriting, "I didn't mean to call him. I just wanted the nightmares to stop, but now he stays. He doesn't go away, he's part of the house." Eliza stared at the words, then a voice behind her made her freeze. "What are you doing down there?" Greg, he stood at the top of the crawlspace, arms crossed. "I told you that's off limits," he said. His tone was light, but his eyes were cold. "I needed to see for myself," Eliza said evenly. "Ashley is in danger." Greg's smile didn't reach his eyes. "There's nothing down there but old junk. You're scaring my family." Eliza stepped up out of the space, clutching the paper in her hand. "There's something wrong in this house," she said, "and I think you know what it is." Greg's jaw twitched, just barely, then he leaned in close. "She's always been a strange little girl," he said. "Says things for attention, makes things up." "I don't believe that," Eliza said. "Then you're part of the problem." Lacey appeared behind him, pale. "Greg," she said, her voice sharp. "Enough." He turned to her, surprised. "She needs to leave," he snapped. Lacey stepped forward. "No, you do." For a second no one moved, then Greg scoffed. "Unbelievable." He stormed off, slamming the door behind him as he left. Eliza and Lacey stood in silence. Ashley peeked from the hallway, eyes wide. Eliza knelt and held out the paper. "Did you write this, Ashley?" Ashley shook her head. "Then who did?" Ashley looked down, then whispered, "Greg, when he was a kid." That night, Eliza sat at her desk again, staring at the note. It all made sense now. The symbol wasn't Ashley's, it was Greg's. He had lived in the house before. Something had happened here, something he never escaped. And now he'd brought it back, passed it on, not just fear, a legacy. She opened her notebook and wrote, "Greg lived here before, carved symbols as a child. Something happened in crawlspace. Passed it on to Ashley, intentionally or not. Trauma passed down, darkness fed." Eliza closed the notebook. She wasn't done. This wasn't just a case anymore. This was something else entirely, and she was right in the middle of it. Eliza had trouble sleeping. She kept replaying Ashley's whisper, "Greg, when he was a kid." That one line turned everything. Greg hadn't just moved into the house. He returned to it, and whatever had happened to him back then was leaking out now, through Ashley, through the symbols, through the walls themselves. The next morning, Eliza made calls, quiet ones. First to the school board, under the pretense of documenting a home situation involving a minor. Then to an old colleague, Jacob, who worked for Child Protective Services. She left out anything about symbols or crawl spaces. Instead, she focused on Ashley's fear, her sleep issues, the unexplained bruises, the drawings. Jacob promised to look into Greg's past. "I'll check for records," he said. "If he lived in that house as a kid, there might be something." By noon, Eliza was back at the school. Ashley sat at her usual seat, drawing again. The other kids whispered about her now, but she didn't seem to notice. Today's drawing was different. No triangle, just a black door with something behind it, something tall and thin with no face. Eliza crouched beside her. "Ashley, can you tell me about this?" Ashley didn't look up. "He doesn't like when people look under the house," she murmured. "That's where he waits." "Who is he?" Ashley paused. Then, "He was Greg's first." That night Jacob called. "I found something," he said. Eliza's breath caught. Greg lived there from age 5 to 10. His biological father died, mother remarried, stepfather moved in. Eliza's grip on the phone tightened. "Anything else?" Jacob hesitated. "There was a CPS report, just one, from a neighbor, claimed she heard screaming late at night. Said the boy never came outside, always pale, always quiet." Then, abruptly, report was closed. No follow-up. The family moved a month later. Eliza closed her eyes. That house had secrets buried under its floors, and now they were resurfacing. She returned to the house the next day. Lacey met her at the door, expression drawn. "I'm sorry," she said. "Greg's gone, left last night, packed a bag, said he needed space." Eliza nodded, unsurprised. "Where's Ashley?" "In her room, but she's not herself today. Keeps saying the floors are too loud." Eliza entered Ashley's room. Girl sat on the bed, knees pulled to her chest. Eliza sat beside her. "Hi." Ashley looked up. Her eyes were ringed with dark shadows. "He's not mad at you," she said softly. "Who?" "The one under the house." Eliza swallowed. "Did Greg tell you about him?" Ashley shook her head. "He doesn't have to. I hear him now." Eliza looked at the floor. The triangle symbol had changed. Now it was crossed out, scratched over violently, like someone tried to erase it with a knife. Eliza leaned in. There was something else. Faint lines under the wood, like letters. She pried gently at the floorboard's edge. It lifted. Beneath it, tucked in a hollow space, was a single torn page from a journal. "He came after the dream started. I saw him under the floor. I drew him to trap him, but the symbols fade if I don't keep drawing. He gets stronger in silence." It was dated 1992. Greg would have been 9. Later that day, Eliza sat in her car outside the local library. She had one last lead to follow, the property records. Inside, the records clerk was helpful, too helpful, like she'd been waiting for someone to finally ask. "This house," she said, pulling out a folder, "used to belong to the Mathers family. Tragic story. Boy went missing back in the 70s, never found. Mother swore he was taken. People thought she lost her mind." Eliza flipped through the file. One photo caught her eye, a picture of the old crawlspace entrance. The same padlock, same floor pattern. Underneath the photo, a scribbled note in red pen. "Some things don't get buried, they wait." Eliza stood in the parking lot afterward, folder clutched to her chest. The triangle symbol wasn't random. It was a seal, a warning, and Greg, maybe without realizing it, had passed it down to Ashley. That night, Eliza returned to the house with Lacey's permission. Ashley was asleep. Lacey sat in the kitchen, too tired to speak. Eliza entered the room quietly and knelt near the bed. She peeled back more floorboards, more journal pages, all written by a child, all describing him, the thin man, the one with no face. The one who whispers through the walls when it's quiet. He had a name too, scrawled over and over, Null. In the crawl space, the air was colder now. Eliza crawled back with her flashlight. Symbols were on every beam, some fresh, some old, and in the dirt half-buried a box. She pulled it free and opened the lid. Inside were dozens of pages, Greg's writing, childhood drawings. Some were covered in smeared graphite. Others had tiny bloodstains, symbols everywhere, but one page stood out. Written in a clear, childish hand, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make him real. I just wanted my stepdad to stop. I just wanted help, but now he's awake, and he never sleeps." Another entry disturbed her. "Sometimes I talk to him. He listens, even if he doesn't speak back. Maybe he's the only one who understands." It was clear Greg had formed a strange bond with Null, perhaps as a way to survive his own trauma. Eliza clutched the page, her breath shallow. The symbols weren't just drawings, they were invitations. And Null had answered. As Eliza climbed out of the crawl space, she heard Ashley crying in her sleep. She rushed to the room. Ashley thrashed under the covers, murmuring, "No, no, don't look, he watches." Eliza gripped her shoulder gently. "It's okay, you're safe." But as she pulled back the blanket, she saw it. A new mark scratched on Ashley's arm, the triangle, but upside down and open at the top like a door. Eliza didn't sleep that night. She sat in her car, the page from Greg's childhood journal in her lap. "I didn't mean to make him real, now he's awake. And he never sleeps." She stared at the house through the windshield. The porch light flickered twice, then went out. Inside, Ashley was somewhere between waking and dreaming, and Eliza was sure now Null was feeding off her. A presence, a memory, a nightmare given shape by pain and silence. Greg hadn't brought this thing home. He'd unleashed it here as a child. And now Ashley was continuing what he began, not by choice, but by exposure, by fear. The next morning, Eliza met Jacob again, this time in person. He slid a small manila envelope across the table. "Don't ask how I got it." Inside were scanned copies of Greg's old psychological Ashleyations. One line stood out. Subject speaks of a long man under the house. Claims drawings keep him trapped. Sleep disturbances. Signs of early trauma. Another note from a different page. Boy states he created Null by accident, possibly as a defense mechanism against real-life abuse by stepfather. Eliza closed the folder. "It wasn't just psychological," she whispered. "He made something, or believed it into existence." Jacob leaned back. "You think Ashley's seeing the same thing? I think she's become the next door." When Eliza arrived at the house later that afternoon, Lacey was pacing the living room. "She won't come out of her room," she said. "Says her bed is floating. Says the triangle's buzzing." Eliza didn't hesitate. She went straight upstairs. Ashley sat in the center of her bed, motionless. The floor around her was covered in new drawings. Hundreds of tiny, overlapping triangles, all pointing downward, all open at the top. "Ashley," Eliza said gently, "what's happening?" Ashley turned slowly. Her eyes were wide and distant. "He's almost here," she whispered. Eliza knelt beside the bed. "Can you tell me what you mean? He's not just under the floor anymore." She pointed to the wall. "He's behind there now." Eliza placed her hand against the wallpaper. Cold. She knocked once. A hollow echo answered. She looked closer, tiny scratches behind the floral pattern, like someone had been clawing to get out. That night, Eliza spread Greg's journal pages across her kitchen table. There were dozens of entries, descriptions, diagrams, instructions. One repeated phrase kept surfacing: "Don't let the door open all the way." She found a drawing that matched the symbol Ashley had scratched into her arm, an upside-down triangle open at the top. Greg had labeled it the final door. There was a warning written beneath it in red crayon: "If she draws it, he walks." Eliza's hand trembled. It wasn't just about remembering trauma. This was about keeping something contained. And Ashley had unknowingly drawn the door open. Eliza returned to the house with a plan. Not therapy, not conversation. Eliza had spent hours poring over Greg's journal and cross-referencing with folklore texts. She believed she had found a way to reverse the invitation to close the door that Greg had opened as a child. It was risky, but it was their only chance. She was going to finish what Greg never could: seal the door. It was nearly midnight. Lacey was asleep on the couch, emotionally drained. Eliza crept upstairs. Ashley's door creaked open slowly. The girl was awake, waiting. "He's watching," she whispered. "He knows you're here." Eliza sat on the floor beside her. "I know, but I'm not afraid." She laid out Greg's pages, forming a circle on the floor. At the center she placed the oldest drawing, a triangle surrounded by protective runes labeled "Containment Seal." Eliza handed Ashley a pencil. "Can you draw this with me, just like this?" Ashley hesitated, then nodded. Together, they began tracing. Line by line, triangles, circles, symbols. As they worked, the air grew colder. Ashley's breath came in short, sharp gasps. Eliza kept drawing. The room groaned. From under the bed, a soft scraping sound began, then a whisper. "You can't stop what you invited." Eliza froze. The voice was not Ashley's. It was male, deep, hollow. Ashley started crying silently, still drawing. Eliza steadied her hand. "It's okay, keep going, don't listen." The floorboards beneath them began to pulse, faint like a heartbeat, then crack. The floor split open at the edge of the bed. Darkness rose like smoke, and from within it an outline, tall, thin, featureless. Null. Eliza stood between him and Ashley. "You're not real," she said, voice shaking. "You were born from pain, but pain doesn't rule her anymore." Null tilted his head, then took a step forward. Ashley screamed. Eliza grabbed the final page, the one with the completed seal, and slammed it to the ground. With trembling fingers, she whispered the symbols aloud. As she did, Ashley repeated them, in unison. As they spoke, the air tore open with a shriek, and the darkness folded in on itself. A vacuum sound pulled through the floor, dragging the black mist, the figure, the fear gone, the crack in the floor sealed. The room fell silent. Later, Eliza sat on the edge of Ashley's bed. The girl was asleep peacefully. No tossing, no whispers, just quiet. Lacey stood in the doorway, eyes full of questions. Eliza didn't have answers that would make sense, just this: "It's over." In the following days, Eliza returned to work. She filed a detailed but carefully worded report with CPS, focused on the psychological harm, the generational trauma, the need for long-term therapy. Greg never returned to the house. Lacey put it up for sale. Ashley began drawing again, but this time flowers, stars, smiling faces. Not a single triangle. Eliza kept Greg's journal pages in a sealed box at the back of her closet. She never spoke of Null again. But sometimes, late at night when the house was too quiet, she would check the floor, just to be sure it wasn't buzzing. Ashley didn't sleep that night. Neither did Eliza. She sat in her car outside the house until the sky began to lighten. Greg's old journal pages spread across the passenger seat. The drawing of the triangle, the one Ashley had carved into her skin, the one that matched what was under her bed, sat on top. It was labeled in Greg's childlike handwriting, "The Final Door." Below it, in jagged letters, "If she draws IT, he walks." Eliza stared at the words, the meaning pressing down on her like a weight she didn't understand. This wasn't just about trauma. This felt older, darker. Inside the house, Ashley sat on the floor of her room, surrounded by papers and pens. She was drawing again, this time on the floor itself over the original triangle. Smaller symbols circled it now. Some were geometric, others were just jagged lines, but they looked intentional, careful. Lacey stood in the doorway, shaking. "She hasn't said a word, she didn't eat dinner, she just keeps drawing." Eliza stepped into the room carefully. Ashley didn't look up. "Sweetheart," she said softly, "what are you making?" Ashley whispered without turning. "He likes doors, but he likes cracks more. Things that are half open, that's when he can see through." Eliza kneeled beside her. "Who is he?" Ashley finally looked at her. Her eyes were red, her face pale. "You already know." And Eliza realized she did. Back home, Eliza spread out the old files Jacob had given her. Notes from Greg's psychiatric stays, his childhood sketches. A few were nearly identical to Ashley's. One note caught her eye. Subject claims drawings keep null away. Claims triangle is a gate, not a symbol. Further interviews recommended. Null. That was the name Greg had given it, not a man, not a memory, a thing, an idea, an emptiness. It didn't feed on fear, it was fear. Greg had tried to trap it, hide it, but he never destroyed it, and now Ashley, living in the same house, sleeping in the same room, was inviting it back without even knowing. That night, Eliza brought sage, salt, and Greg's final journal entry. She wasn't sure if it would do anything, but she wasn't going to leave Ashley alone again. "I want to try something," she told Lacey, who just nodded numbly. In Ashley's room, Eliza closed the door gently. The girl was sitting on the edge of her bed, hands in her lap. "He was whispering again," Ashley said. "I told him to stop, but he just laughed." Eliza spread the salt in a wide circle on the floor. She didn't know what she was doing, not really. But the symbols Ashley had drawn, they matched something Greg had called a containment ring. Ashley watched quietly, then got up and helped her complete the pattern. She didn't need to be told what to do. When they were done, Eliza unfolded the journal page. "Can we read this together?" she asked. Ashley looked down at the words. They were nonsense syllables, or so they seemed. Still, Ashley nodded. They began reading. As they spoke, wind stirred in the room, but the windows were closed. Ashley flinched. "He's angry. Keep going," Eliza said. The wind grew louder, swirling the papers on the floor. The triangle beneath the bed began to glow faintly. Then a voice, thin and cold: "You let me in. You can't shut me out now." A shadow leaked from under the bed, rising like black mist. Eliza's heart pounded, but she kept reading. So did Ashley. The shadow took shape, tall, thin, featureless. Eyes like holes. "Null." It stepped forward, but the salt circle hissed. It paused, then lunged. Crack, a flash of light, a deafening screech, and the shadow collapsed inward, vanishing into the center of the triangle. The room went still. The salt circle smoked faintly. Ashley dropped the page and sank into Eliza's arms. "He's gone," she whispered. "I think he's really gone." 2 weeks later, the house was quiet again. Ashley laughed at breakfast for the first time in months. The drawing stopped. Her sleep returned. Lacey listed the house for sale. She didn't explain why. Eliza kept the journal pages locked in a box. Some nights she burned sage without knowing if it helped. But she slept too. Still, sometimes, when she passed a mirror in the dark or heard floorboards creak behind her, she'd think of the triangle and wonder if a crack had been left open somewhere. The therapist's office was brighter now. Not because of new lights or fresh paint, but because Ashley smiled when she entered. She sat cross-legged on the couch, sketchbook closed in her lap. "I had a dream last night," she said softly. "I was walking through a hallway made of wood, like the inside of a cabin. There were doors everywhere, but none of them opened." Eliza nodded. "Were you afraid?" "No," Ashley said. "I think I was just looking." Eliza smiled. "That's progress." They sat in silence for a while. The air felt clean, still. Then Ashley reached into her bag and pulled out one final drawing. She held it up with a shy look. It was a circle with a small key in the center. "He can't come back through this," she said. "It's a lock. I made it up. I think it works." Eliza took the drawing. "I believe it does." The house sold quickly. Lacey didn't wait for the papers to finish clearing. She packed what she needed and moved into a condo across town with Ashley. Smaller, cleaner, newer. No creaking floorboards. No marks under the bed. One evening, Lacey called Eliza just to say thank you. "She's doing better than I ever thought she would," she said. "She hums in the car now. She eats again. I think she's even making a friend at school." Eliza listened quietly, relieved. "I'm glad. She's strong." There was a pause. "Do you really think it was something supernatural?" Lacey asked carefully. "Or was it just trauma?" Eliza considered that. "I think," she said, "that sometimes trauma carves deep shapes in us. And sometimes when we're small and scared, we give those shapes names, faces, even doors. Another pause. But whatever it was, she added, it's gone now. Weeks passed, then months. Eliza resumed seeing other clients. Life settled into a rhythm again. But one gray afternoon, a package arrived at her office with no return address. Inside was a wooden box, and inside that the carved triangle, burned into the wood, exactly like the one under Ashley's bed. Eliza's hands trembled. She turned it over. On the back was a short note. I found this in the attic after we moved. You should keep it. I don't want it near her. Eliza stared at the triangle. Then she placed it in the fireplace and watched it burn. The flames sputtered and hissed, almost like they resisted. But eventually it turned to ash. Still, when she turned off the lights that night, her hand hovered over the switch for a moment longer than usual. And when she finally stepped into the dark, she moved quickly past the mirrors. 1 year later, Ashley stood at the edge of a lake, skipping stones. Eliza watched her from a bench nearby. They hadn't had a session in months, but they still met from time to time just to talk. She's not real, Ashley said suddenly. Eliza looked up. Who? The shadow girl. The one I used to see in the mirror. She was just pieces of me, broken pieces. Eliza smiled. And now I'm whole, Ashley said. Not perfect, but whole. The sun caught her hair as she tossed another stone. I think doors go both ways, she said after a moment. You can open them, but you can close them too. Eliza nodded. And you did.